He walked out in the gray light and stood, and he saw for a brief moment the absolute truth of the world. The cold, relentless circling of the intestate earth. Darkness implacable. The blind dogs of the sun in their running. The crushing black vacuum of the universe. And somewhere 200 animals trembling like ground foxes in their cover. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it.
And lo, for the earth was empty of form, and void, and darkness was all over the face of the deep, and we said, look at that fucker dance.
Welcome to Heat Death of the Universe. From Seoul, South Korea. Hard time stamp, October 30th, 2020. It is a Friday. It is 11:47 a.m. And today we're going to talk about the Aaron SOARkin masterwork, The Trial of the Chicago 7. So, I watched this movie twice now. How many times did you see it?
I saw it one time in two parts. I watched part of it before going to work, then I watched the other part after coming home from work.
Nice. What was your overall opinion generally?
I thought it was good. I watched it one time. I was entertained, and I had issues with it. I think it could have been even better if done by someone else.
Yeah, you mentioned that. You said you would have liked Spielberg's version more.
I just know that Spielberg was originally going to direct it. I feel like he might have done a better job with it.
Spielberg basically commissioned Sorkin to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Sorkin wanted to write it, I know, but I guess he was reluctant to direct. But the funny thing is I found that the direction was just, fine. It was competent. Not great, but not necessarily bad. But the screenplay is the part I have a lot of issues with. So I think we see a lot of Aaron Sorkin's, shall we say, from our point of view, objectionable politics.
Sorkinisms?
Bleeding through. The Sorkinisms, stylistically, are there too, but Jesus Christ, man. Careful.
Sorry.
That made me, kicked every thought out of my head, that sound.
It hurt too.
There's a good place
if you're listening,
to start. There's a good place to start that I've heard of called the beginning of the movie. So I got something to say about this beginning, something that I found truly hilarious and mind-boggling as a choice for this movie.
Tell me about the beginning.
The intro is like a montage of it's sort of generic 60s footage, of the draft, and the first thing we see is President Johnson saying we have to increase the numbers of soldiers by double. It was 17,000 to 30-some thousand, and so there's some kind of generic 60s footage, and then suddenly this music starts to creep in that sounds really, really disjointed from what I'm seeing on the screen. Because what I'm seeing on the screen is it's a lot of this fast cut montage stuff, and it's introducing us to the main characters, the Chicago 8 as they were at the time, and it's just trying to sum up what they're all about. It shows Abby Hoffman saying we'll try to be peaceful, but if the cops fuck with us, we're gonna show them. And then they cut, and it's to Thomas Hayden, who's one of the other main figures, or Tom Hayden, and he's got short hair. He's more, he's less radical looking, I guess. And he's saying more things about how we're going to remain peaceful, but we're coming to Chicago no matter what. But anyway, my big problem was this music. It was so distracting. What was distracting? Did you not notice this?
I didn't really notice the music.
The music is so bad, man. I think I'm just gonna play like the opening, like faintly underneath the beginning of the podcast. Music? Okay, here's what I wrote in my notes. Tone deaf music sounds like late 80s, early 90s comedy score. Just the word saxophone, and then upbeat to absurdity. It's like like it's literally that kind of shit, and it's like so. It's just clashing so much with like the seriousness of the Vietnam War and trying to stop the Vietnam War. It makes no fucking sense.
I don't remember the music.
I almost want to just play it right now, but
usually I notice music. Oh God!
I noticed it on the first watch, like immediately, and I was watching with Haywan, and I was saying to her, like, "Do you hear this? Like, this is ridiculous. This is a joke."
See, for some reason, I can only remember like 60s counterculture music being in the movie.
It absolutely was not, and and that was another thing. Like, there's none of that really. There's another scene that we'll get to later where I just wrote down ridiculous new metal. Like suddenly there's these like chunky distorted guitars going like during the riot scene. They're like so out of place. But yeah, whoever's listening, if you have no interest in watching this movie, but just watch the first. I read actually how long. This music goes on for 7 minutes and 24 seconds, and it's absurd. It's like so strange to me that they chose this music. Okay, so they established these eight figures, right? So I guess we should just go through who they are. The most famous one, I guess, it would be Abby Hoffman, leader of the Youth International Party, the Yippies, and Jerry Rubin, who's also leader of the same party and group. A guy named David Dellinger, who is like just a strict pacifist who opposed the war. I guess he famously even sat vocally opposed and refused to go serve in World War II. Tom Hayden, he's like the buttoned up guy who wants a revolution, but he wants to do it the right way. At least that's the way he's portrayed in Sorkin's film. I've heard it's a little inaccurate that way, and also his cohort, Rennie Davis. He's, I don't know, the guy with glasses who's also like buttoned up looking.
He seemed to be the brain behind Hayden.
A little bit, maybe, yeah.
But also he seemed to be like the more radicalized of the two, but he started out less radicalized.
Maybe.
But then he got hit by a billy club or something. I don't know.
Actually, in the movie, when they do that thing at the end where they're like, here's what happened to them after, they don't mention anything about what he did later. And I didn't look into him specifically.
I noticed that.
And then there were these two guys that were just like, we don't know anything about them through the film other than, their names were John Froines and Lee Weiner. And at one point in the movie, the Abby Hoffman character says, "You know why you guys are in this trial? You're here just to be the people that they're gonna like acquit, and just so they can make this whole spectacle look like it's been kind of fair." Because they like literally had nobody really had anything to do with the charges against them, but these guys especially didn't. I think was the idea. And then Bobby Seale, the founder of the Black Panthers, who ended up, he was the 8th member who eventually gets a mistrial, which we'll get to that as well. We can try to go through it kind of sequentially. So then what happens after this intro montage? Well, during the intro montage, one thing I thought was just kind of silly was they show Jerry Rubin instructing like a class of what looks almost like high school students, but maybe college students, how to make a Molotov cocktail. And in true Sorkin fashion, he doesn't just say, here's how to make a Molotov cocktail and show them how to do it. He has to start off by saying, it's named after, and I don't remember the guy's name, some Russian guy probably, blah, 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 Molotov. Like, just to show that he's smart, you know. Sorkin wants to show that Sorkin is smart because he's the screenwriter who just writes himself into every character's mouth, basically. And, so then there's an important dynamic, I guess, to just talk about right off the bat is that I thought was like, what did you say that Sorkin said about Abby Hoffman and his like kind of failure to understand him or something?
Sorkin basically said that Abby Hoffman was intolerable.
Yeah. Did he give specific reasons in that quote, or he just said like I can't stand the guy?
He says that he can't relate to him and he finds him mostly intolerable.
Okay. Yeah, we see that really clearly in the film because he sets up this very heavy-handed contrast between Tom Hayden and Abby Hoffman. So Abby Hoffman represents, like, he's the guy with the long hair. He's the guy who wants cultural revolution against what Hayden calls real revolution. And I guess he just means, like, political revolution through elections and stuff. Hoffman's more willing to cause sort of chaos, maybe use violence, possibly. At least he's more open to it. Hayden seems to be the one who's portrayed as like the pure pacifist or whatever. Hoffman's like the radical. Hayden is like, I mean, what in today's terms we would just call the neoliberal, I would say. I mean, I guess he was like sort of center left, maybe not total neolib, but anyway, it's just important it's an important dynamic of the story or of Sorkin's interpretation of this, what is otherwise a very like interesting historical event, this long trial. I forget how long it went on. It was like 7 months, maybe even longer. But, this is a sidebar. What did you know about like any of these guys or the trial itself, like before going into the movie or like reading about it for the podcast?
I knew that Abby Hoffman wrote Steal This Book, which I had checked out at some previous point in my life.
You didn't steal it? Oh, I thought you meant checked out like from the library. I think I might have literally stolen that book because I worked at a bookstore where it was very easy to do that.
Does downloading a digital copy
that's stealing.
Count as stealing?
Totally.
Oh, okay. So that's how I read most of my books, is downloading digital copies.
I've actually never even read the book. I may have stolen it. I can't remember.
I also worked at a bookstore, and whenever I borrowed books from it, I didn't bring them back. I never considered that stealing. I considered that one of the perks of the job.
Extended borrowing.
I mean, one day I might take them back. Bookstore's not there anymore. I'm not there anymore, but one day I might take them back. Actually, I think I donated them all to another bookstore.
That's
Wait, where am I going with this?
I don't know.
I didn't know. I mean, I knew about the trial, but honestly, I did not know hardly any of the specifics other than it was a big case. I knew about the Bobby Seale being bound and gagged during the trial, and that there was some that one song that starts out with that line. I suddenly forgot the name of the song.
There's a couple famous songs got written about the trial. I think one was just literally called Chicago. I forget who wrote it, but
I knew a lot of famous people were in the trial. Like
Graham Nash.
I think I'd heard about the Allen Ginsberg parts of the trial, and was it Arthur Guthrie also part of the trial at one point?
I know that Pete Seeger was there. He's the musician I can think of. And like Timothy Leary. There are a bunch of like kind of counterculture like icons. I mean, Pete Seeger is obviously like generation before, at least, right?
Yeah. I think I'd had a university professor mention this in one of my classes, but honestly, I was kind of ignorant of most of it.
Yeah, I didn't know a ton about the specifics. I mean, where I probably got my first like introduction to it was from another movie called Steal This Movie, which is a Abby Hoffman biopic starring Vincent D'Onofrio. And Janine Garofalo was like his girlfriend in it. I bet that movie does not hold up. I don't even know if it held up when I first watched it in the year 2000 when it came out. But I liked Vincent D'Onofrio enough to where it was entertaining enough for me to watch. I might have even watched it twice. I don't know. But it's probably super cartoonish. But
wow, it has really bad reviews.
They go through the trial as like a very, very, very quick like couple of scenes in that movie, and they just show like so I knew about the stuff of like them wearing judges' robes and then revealing cop outfits underneath, and like, you know, basically being rude to the judge and so on, and that it was a big circus and such. And I knew about the Bobby Seale thing, because I mean, that's so fucked up. I mean, that detail is something that's going to stick with you when you hear about it. So yeah, I guess that's our backgrounds on this. I mean, I think I knew the basic outline of the trial, but yeah, I hadn't really thought about it much until like, you know, this movie cropped up. So then we meet some of the, we'll call them like the opposition, the people, I guess we call them the prosecution. The
prosecution's made up of who?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Playing
he's Richard Schultz, who becomes the head prosecutor. And my notes just have Richard Schultz equals reluctant asshole.
So the father of Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks?
God damn it, no. Well, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. We should look that up.
It shows him and the other prosecutor, whose name it doesn't matter because he doesn't play much of a role, at least in the movie.
The other prosecutor was a dyed-in-the-wool Nixonite. But as the movie portrays, Richard Schultz, he may have had a soft inside, though that wasn't really true in real life.
Yeah, that's all they show of this guy. Is he like? That's why I said reluctant asshole, because everything he does, he seems like reluctant about it.
He had the type of integrity that would call. He had the type of imagined integrity that people believe that Amy Coney Barrett has, and it's what's going to make her recuse herself from the court.
Yeah.
In about 5 days from now, when they can't count the votes in time, and Biden wins the popular vote for like 5 million, 6 million, but the vote still goes to Trump. And Trump wins with a 6-3 minority or majority on the Supreme Court. I mean, it's fine. They're basically the same person anyways. They're both against everything good in the world, so whatever.
So Richard Schultz is sitting in, like, waiting in the, I don't know, lobby area of the office of the new Attorney General. And we know he's the new Attorney General because with Sorkin's light touch, he shows them literally changing the portrait on the wall from Johnson to Nixon. And and he must know in some way, some self-conscious way, that that's kind of heavy-handed and ridiculous. So the way that he tries to like soften it or show that he's sort of like self-aware is he has the secretary say to Richard Schultz, Gordon Levitt, oh, you just happen to be here at this very special moment when we're changing out the portraits. I just thought that was really dumb. It's like Sorkin thinks he's smarter than everyone. So he thinks he has to like play to the dummies. It's like, people aren't going to understand that Nixon's the president now. So I'm going to show pictures changing on the wall, literally. And they go into the office of this asshole. I don't have his name right in front of me. He's the new AG though. And we established that he's pissed off at the old AG, Ramsey Clark, who we will see later is played by Michael Keaton. He's pissed off because Ramsey Clark refused to step down.
John Mitchell.
Like,
that attorney general's name was John Mitchell.
Okay, so John Mitchell's pissed off at Ramsey Clark because apparently there's like a tradition of the attorney general just stepping down when a new presidential administration takes over, and Ramsey was like very slow to do it, reluctant to do it, and this pissed off this hard-headed Nixon following asshole. So we see this meeting, and the whole time JGL, because it's easier just to say him instead of Richard Schultz. He looks like he doesn't want to be there. He's like got his like sad puppy dog eyes. He's like always looking reluctant, like he's not on board. He's even clashes a little bit with the AG about like, sir, I don't think we even have a case against these 8 guys. Like they never met each other. And then like, this is all shit he never said, like almost with 100% certainty. This is all Sorkin fantasy. And, so they have their little witty, like back and forth Sorkinist type thing, and the whole point is just setting up like this Richard Schultz guy is going to be the lead prosecutor on this case.
And he's going to take the job that he doesn't agree with because the almighty dollar, not because he has ambitions. Wait.
Huh? No, I think he. Okay, but it's portrayed that way. It's portrayed in a way that, like, yeah, he's just doing his job. He's just following orders, quote unquote. But we take a peek at reality, and like I have this interview with the real guy, an interview from like a week ago. He's still alive. He's like the last major figure from this trial, still alive. And he says like, absolutely not. He was not reluctant. He was totally gung-ho about it. I mean, I could read some quotes later, but point is this is just Sorkin's fantasy versus reality, right? I mean, it's a lot of what is happening in this film. So also in the meeting, this new AG makes it very clear that like he wants by any means necessary for them to win and put these guys in jail. That is very important. That is going to be like this first act of the new attorney general, and send a message that like this kind of protesting and hippie shenanigans will not stand. I suppose we should mention that. I mean, I'm sure anyone listening to this knows what the story is about, but this is all around the 1968 Democratic Convention where there were riots, and the trial is basically about who started the riot. Was it the police or the protesters? That's like the main question that it comes down to. So I think then we just cut to the trial. Yeah. Then we go to the trial, and there's people on one side, outside of the court, there's the hippies on one side and the pro-war people on the other, which I guess that's pretty realistic. That kind of stuff did happen. Yeah. I mean, still happens to this day in a way, like people just like facing each other, yelling at each other, and like kind of fenced off. They're screaming, "The whole world is watching." Abby Hoffman, Jerry Rubin walk by, and they just look kind of like, "Whoa, man, this is wild." Should say that the guy who plays Jerry Rubin is he's a good actor, but there are times I don't know his real name off the top of my head. I only know him from the show Succession, which he's good on. I found his voice really kind of like, so he's, if I realize he's British, so it's a doubly hard task. He's got to do an American accent, but he's also trying to do this kind of like hippie voice sometimes, and it kind of wavers in and out. And when certain points he hits the hippie voice, it sounds literally like Cheech and Chong, like cartoonish, like, it's bullshit, man. Like, I don't know. Did you pick up on that at all?
Did.
And I guess we should mention the other main actors, right? So Borat plays Abby Hoffman.
I thought that was Ali G playing out.
Same guy, believe it or not.
No way.
I watched the new Borat movie the other day, by the way.
I haven't watched it yet.
It was fine. It was fine.
I've heard it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the magic is gone, but it was still it was worth one watch, I would say. Yeah, I think the acting is generally pretty good in the movie.
I mean, I thought that Sasha was probably the best of everyone in the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sometimes I questioned his accent, but maybe Hoffman really did have that heavy of a, like, I don't even know is that like a Long Island accent? I don't even know.
I'm not really sure.
Some sort of New York accent.
Accents are like names. I kind of forget them.
And faces. And pronunciations.
I have brain stutters. Us in the business, we like to call them gaffes.
Yeah, it's just a gaff. Or
it's just a sign that I was made for politics. But just because you're made for something doesn't mean you have to follow your calling.
Yeah, deny your nature.
That's what I live by. I deny my nature by being lazy. How do you deny your nature?
I don't know. I don't know what my nature is, actually. So we enter the courtroom. We meet the defense attorneys. There's, I think it's William Kunstler. He's like the head defense attorney. And then the secondary one is something Wineglass.
Yeah.
I forgot his first name. I don't have it right in front of me. But also two good actors there whose names I don't remember either. And so, yeah, this is the first time we see the Chicago 8, as they were at the time, all together. And Bobby Seale's definitely looking pissed off to be there. Like, the rest of the guys, like especially Abby Hoffman and Ruben, they're not taking it
to be there.
They're not taking it seriously. They're taking it. They see it as a opportunity to like get more media attention and, you know, bring in the cultural revolution, as Abby Hoffman's character.
I actually think that's
it.
something they misrepresented about Hayden in the movie. I don't think that he like in the movie, like, he doesn't want to be there. He's afraid of being like charged and stuff. But I think actually that he also saw it sort of as like a thing that to help promote his political career. Because things I've read, it's like he knew even then that he'd be able to kind of like use it to boost him into some type of like, because he wanted to go into politics.
Yeah, which he does end up doing. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I mean, I think he saw it as a way of just like further promoting the anti-war movement.
But honestly, in the movie, Hayden, I don't actually know enough about the actual Tom Hayden, but I think in the movie, Tom Hayden was supposed to be the conduit of Aaron Sorkin. That was Tom Hayden, portrayed by an actor whose name I cannot remember because
Eddie Redmayne.
That was actually portraying Aaron Sorkin in Aaron Sorkin's version of What If I Was Tom Hayden, because that's who I would have been during this trial.
He wouldn't have even been that. But yeah, I mean, he has to put himself into his work. And like when the most clearly you hear Sorkin's politics articulated is at a few key points when Tom Hayden is speaking. which there's one thing we're going to listen to live, one scene that I think really exemplifies it. Maybe we should just play it when we get to it in the movie, I guess.
Do it then.
Okay, big important thing about Bobby Seale, though. One other historical inaccuracy is that Fred Hampton, who was the co-founder of the Black Panthers and, friend of Bobby Seale's, he was never there. He was never, ever, ever in the courtroom.
I can imagine he was allowed. I mean...
But they show him
they show him like whispering in his ear.
Yeah, like prominently playing a role in the court proceedings. Like the judge even at one point is like, "Who is that man behind you?"
Yeah.
And like he refuses to tell him. He's like, "I demand you tell me," and all this stuff. And he says, "Well, I can only assume he's giving him legal advice."
I remember.
So maybe this is a good point to bring up this asshole judge.
The judge was terrible.
Yeah. His name is also Hoffman, Julius Hoffman, Judge Julius Hoffman. He
not related to Abby.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really happened that Sorkin did include that I did find kind of funny. I found it more funny reading about it than actually seeing it in the movie for some reason. Was when the judge addresses the jury and says, "I just want to make it clear that I am not related to him." And Abby Hoffman yells out, "Father, no, why have you forsaken me?"
I mean, one of the things that's, I think, kind of sad that they left out was apparently Hoffman and Rubin, throughout most of the case, they would basically never call him Judge Hoffman. They basically only called him Hitler, Julie, or... just Nazi.
Yeah, I mean, with good reason. I mean, this guy is a monster. So he completely... I mean, I don't know how this even was allowed to go on for so long, because Bobby Seale didn't have a lawyer, and he I don't know, petitions, whatever you call it, the judge to delay the proceedings until his lawyer was recovered from surgery, like gallbladder surgery. Now, some people, including this Richard Schultz prosecutor guy in this interview with him, he claims that Bobby Seale's not having a lawyer was a purposeful tactic on Bobby Seale's part to make the court look more racist than it really was. And I think that's probably a lot of bullshit. I don't think Bobby Seale was trying to get himself bound and gagged.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to get a lawyer.
Yeah.
His lawyer.
Well, he wanted a lawyer, and...
He wanted his lawyer.
He wanted his lawyer, right. And so the judge also keeps suggesting, so many times, it gets so irritating. He's like, "Well, there's a lawyer sitting right next to you." And he's like, "Just be his... Hey, lawyer, just be that guy's lawyer." And, referring to Kunstler. And he never does that, of course, because, I mean, Bobby Seale doesn't want that. He wants his lawyer. And he doesn't want to be included in the same trial because he repeats many times, he was in Chicago for 4 hours. He gave a speech. He ate a chicken pot pie, and he went home.
Man, I would love to eat a chicken pot pie.
Is that the high point of the movie for you?
I just thought about how happy chicken pot pies can make a person.
And so he literally and he says as much in the movie. Sorkin does include at least some of this stuff where he says, "I've never met any of these people until today in the courtroom. I kind of want nothing to do with them, frankly. My movement is quite separate from what they're doing." And the first thing in the opening remarks from the prosecution, so Richard Schultz, JGL, his whole point is, there are 3 groups here, or so they would have you think, but they're actually one large conspiracy. So the big thing they were trying to convince the jury of was there was a conspiracy amongst the Yippies, the SDS, the Students for Democratic Society, and the Black Panthers, of which there wasn't any, and that they incited a riot. Then what happens? Oh, one thing I noticed was throughout the trial, this piece of shit judge, like his reflex, like just like defense mechanism or something, whenever he feels like angry or slighted, he just throws around contempt citations like crazy. He gave Bobby Seale 16 contempt charges and sentenced him to 4 years in jail for being slightly rude. Contempt of court, like that's just something I started thinking about more generally. It seems like a real, I mean, I guess only really, really terrible judges abuse it the way that like he did. But like it seems like something you could get away with.
You have to show your respect to authority.
Yeah, but
that's actually something. I know we were talking about this some before we started recording, but that's like that's something I don't think Sorkin really played up near as much as it should have been in the movie, because like the guy gave like 190, 200 charges of contempt. At the time, it was like the most. I think it's been six superseded since then, but it was the most charges of contempt in court ever until that time.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And like in the movie, other than like the one scene where they have Hoffman and Rubin like wearing the judge robes, like make fun of the judge, mostly everyone except for Bobby Seale, until he like was mistrialed, was kind of passively sitting and watching. I mean, there was a few stand-up moments in the movie, but like from what I understand from the real trial was that basically all of them, Dillinger, Rubin, Hoffman, etc., they would give like running commentary during the trial, that, or they would just like fall asleep on purpose or pretend to snore. They'd be reading like newspapers,
doing doing headstands and stuff.
Yeah. That sounds like it would have made for a better movie to me. But instead, I think Sorkin's like respect for the system, he has to like paint this picture of what he believes America, even historical things in America, what they should have been or how they should have played out.
Right. Like I had some note, I can't even find it right now, but I think I just wrote like everything Sorkin touches is like smoothed over and like defanged. Like all of like the bite of things is like taken out of it in a way. Like this is like, I also was entertained by this movie, and I thought it was...
Oh, I found it entertaining.
I mean, I think I already said this, but like competently directed, whatever. But like, it was almost like a soap opera version or something in a way. It actually, like you said, you would have liked it more if Spielberg had done it. I don't think Spielberg would have done much different, because Spielberg does the same kind of things to history.
I just think...
not quite as bad.
I mean, I just think Spielberg's a better director than Sorkin.
Well, of course he is, but like, I mean, if it had been the same script, I don't think Spielberg directing would have really made it any better.
I mean, I don't know how much the script's changed from like, I know they originally started working on this movie, I think in like 2007.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Actually, it still had Sasha as Abby Kaufman, even at that time, like he had been casted, but I think they were going to have, I think Heath Ledger was going to play Hayden, so it was while Heath Ledger is still alive.
He's too good looking, though.
I think the guy they got to play Hayden now is too good looking, to be honest.
He's kind of weird looking, though.
Yeah, but...
He's weird looking. I told you his annoying thing to me was his mouth hanging open and his tongue sticking out, like every time he's doing something emotional.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of said that in jest that Spielberg would have been better. I mean, I do actually think Spielberg is a better director than Sorkin.
Well, sure.
I mean, most people probably think that because it's Spielberg.
Yeah, and I don't know. In any case, Where were we? Oh yeah, so the contempt charges, and yeah, Bobby Seale getting 4 years, and so even after the mistrial, Bobby Seale gets basically like severed from the whole trial, but he's still sentenced to those 4 years for contempt. And he would end up like serving about 2 of those years, and then the whole thing finally got turned over by another circuit court. But and the defense lawyer Kunstler, he had 24 citations of contempt by the end of it as well. Another thing I noticed a bit more the second time, or I thought about the meaning of it more, I guess, the second time, was that there's a big focus on, in the beginning at least, how the judge constantly can't pronounce people's names correctly. And like at first, like when it happened for one time, I was like, okay, I guess that's kind of mildly funny. But then it just kept happening and happening and happening. And I felt like, I was like, Sorkin's focusing so much on this aspect of the judge being like, you know, an asshole, but kind of not. There's a lot of like terrible shit that he did that Sorkin just ignores or smooths over, I think, in a way too. Like even the bound and gagged like Bobby Seale segment of the movie, which we'll get to in a second. But I just thought it was like, it just went too far with that. It was like, all right, I get it. He like can't remember people's names. Maybe he's just a dumb old man. That's like the least of his problems. Is my point. I
forget names too, though. Are you saying I could be a dumb old man? I keep hoping that I can search. I know Bobby Seale's still alive. I keep wanting to see like some. I think this is the internet in me, but for some reason I want to see 84-year-old Bobby Seale's opinion of the movie.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably out there.
No, I haven't seen him say anything about it. He probably has better things to do in his 80s than watch Aaron SOARkin's movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious. I mean, if I was him, I'd be curious about it, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. Let's see. Then, at least in the chronology of my notes, here, hang on a second. Yeah, the next thing that happens is the removal of the 2 jurors. The next like major thing. So
that did happen.
Yeah, that actually happened. But the way that Sorkin frames it though is just a little too perfect. So they show them like, they show this like house that they're all like living in, presumably, or that maybe that's just where they meet. I don't know, like all of the defendants and the lawyers and stuff, and all their like, I don't know, hippie hangers on. And I
thought that was like the law office house for the lawyer was part of the their defense attorney was part of the like an activist lawyer group that I suddenly forgot the name of. I'll have to look it up in a second.
That sounds right. I mean,
I thought it was like their headquarters.
I think it was. At one point, the receptionist keeps answering the phone saying conspiracy office? Something like that. Yeah. As a joke. But
that probably happened. Or something similar.
Yeah, I don't know. That was kind of just whatever for me. It just attempt at humor, and I didn't. Sorkin is just one of the least funny writers, also, I think, in a way. But yeah, there's a scene there at this headquarters, this house, whatever, and I forget who says it. It might be Tom Hayden. No. It's the lawyer Weinglass. He says like jurors 6 and 11, and Hayden's like, huh? And he's like, they were nodding along like when we said something about, you know, injustice or whatever. And he said he saw one of them reading Baldwin. Why can't I think of his first name? So dumb. Fuck. Like the great writer amazing writer. Suddenly his first name is just James Baldwin. So to him, that's a sign that, okay, we got at least 2 of these jurors on our side. And then it's depicted in the movie as if like the very next day they go into court and they go to the judge's chambers, and he says 2 of the jurors got threatening letters from the Black Panthers last night. Jurors number 6 and 11. It's like, oh, what a coincidence. I mean, I'm sure those jurors were targeted for that reason, but like the idea that they were having a conversation the day before, like, oh, yeah, did you see jurors 6 and 11? They're totally on our side. Then the next day they're like gone.
I mean, lawyers talk about the jurors, but
I guess it's not that weird. Maybe
like, I think that's common that lawyers try to figure out which jurors are going to be. I mean,
it's true, but I think
I don't think it played out that way.
It's just the way movies have to be sometimes, because like, to some extent, I understand, like, okay, it's a 2-hour movie. Of course, a lot of stuff is going to be left out, even important things. But like I said, Sorkin also focuses on unimportant things, like the judge can't remember people's names and shit like that. And anyway, the thing about the jurors,
my understanding that the actual judge was... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The actual judge was way less respectful towards everyone in the courtroom than what they made him out to be in the movie. I mean, he was horrible in the movie, but like he was apparently just like way more of a dick in like real life.
Yeah, that's everything I've read about it as well says the same thing. And he's a real asshole in the movie, to be honest, but like, he was much worse in reality.
I was going to say that's like another like case of Sorkinism, where I think Sorkin has a hard time of like painting anyone in like governmental power as like
genuine villain.
Like I imagine like in 10 years from now when Sorkin does his Trump movie that he will gonna
be a sympathetic portrait.
He'll paint Trump as like boisterous, but he'll still have like his moments
of
where
doubt.
He like clearly sees from both sides and shows how like Trump or his Mitch McConnell movie where he shows how they could be swayed.
It would be like Trump like looking at a picture of his father and like having like daddy issues moments and like a one tear streaking down his face. Shit like that. Oh man, I can't wait for that movie. Or maybe Oliver Stone will just do what he did with W, except for Bush. It'll just be called Trump. T. Yeah. T. Anyway. This is another. So in this scene where they're dismissing those jurors, and it's very obviously bullshit, and the counselor, the defense attorney, is like, "For the love of Christ, Judge," and he's kind of freaking out about it because he knows it's totally bullshit. He says, the Black Panthers don't leave threatening letters any more than the mob does, like. And then he also yells at the prosecution, saying like, "If I find out you guys were behind this, you're going to be up close to the law more than you've ever wanted to be." Kind of threatens them. And this is another case of Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing his fucking pouty puppy dog thing. Like it's like he feels kind of bad about these dirty tactics being played, but he just has to keep doing his job and respect the institutions. Anyway, the next thing I have written down is they're back at the headquarters, and at one point Jerry Rubin, he's just kind of like bitching and moaning. They're complaining about these jurors being kicked off. And he says, "How come no one on the jury looks like me?" And Kunstler fires back in very Sorkin form. "Who here has ever shown up for jury duty?" No hands go up. And he goes, "Then shut the fuck up." And that's the end of it. It's like basically saying like, oh, because like this room full of 5 hippies hasn't shown up for jury duty, like...
A better question I usually feel like is who the hell has ever been selected for jury duty? Like,
I know my mom has. She's probably one of the only people I know who actually has, though, honestly. But I mean, there's a lot there's a lot of people in America, so
that's true.
It makes sense that, like, you know, statistically, the likelihood is probably pretty low getting selected. I don't know. I've never gotten it. Actually, no, I did while I was living in Korea, and I had to like go through this whole annoying process. Yeah, I had to go.
I've always wondered what would happen if you were selected.
It was kind of an annoying process, but
do you have to call people?
I don't really remember. It was annoying. We can probably leave it at that. But like,
God, I wouldn't even find out. I don't. Never mind. Doesn't matter. That's too much personal information, but I don't know if I exist on a real address in America or not, but that's where all of my American mail would go. So
maybe that's why you're not getting your check, man.
No, I have it on direct deposit.
Yeah, but you don't exist, so then your bank account doesn't mean anything.
No, maybe.
Anywho, then there's this sequence that I found it interesting where we see like all the people in this headquarters watching the TV, and what we see revealed on the TV is it's like what's it called? Taps? Like the trumpet, the bugle song that's played like for dead soldiers.
Yeah.
Taps, right?
Taps.
So Taps is playing, and then like these names are scrolling by, and a big American flag in the background. And I didn't look up to see if they really did this back in those days. Maybe they did, but maybe Sorkin invented it because the whole point of him showing that wasn't really to show the seriousness of the Vietnam War, but right after it ends, the secretary, she says to Rennie, I wrote down the names. I added the names, something like that. And this is all just a little breadcrumb that's going to lead us to the climactic ending of the movie. An ending that I find to be extremely hilarious, but we'll get there in a moment. So that happens. Then we see this whole kind of sequence of like undercover FBI agents infiltrating all the different protester groups, like before the riot or protest, whatever you want to call it. And it's not super significant, I feel like. I don't know. There's this whole thing with this like love interest that you said that was historically like false, right?
Yeah. She didn't exist. Yeah,
there's this undercover. She's supposed to be FBI or just a cop. I can't remember.
Like FBI.
But she's wearing like a cop uniform when she's testifying.
I think she's supposed to be FBI.
Yeah, okay. So this woman, like this attractive woman, like seduces Jerry Rubin like briefly to like get in there, but it doesn't really have much consequence. I don't know. See, this is an example of while Sorkin's writing this fake thing that didn't happen, it adds nothing to the movie really at all.
The FBI did have people infiltrate the yuppies.
They did, but all this side show of this like it has to be this weird fake romance thing, because then it just takes up like precious minutes and seconds from the movie that you could be using for all the other shit that he left out. And
one of the agents that they had as a witness during the trial that like infiltrated the yuppies was Jeremy Rubin's bodyguard, who like to Jeremy Rubin was like his friend, but
Jerry.
Did I say Jeremy?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Anyways, I don't know why they didn't just keep like the original character. Why did they have to? I think like he was doing this weird thing to like Aaron Sorkin had to figure out a way to make Jerry Rubin more relatable to like Aaron Sorkin, and Aaron was like, I can't imagine becoming friends with like some random dude, but girl, I understand falling for a woman.
Yeah, it also makes Jerry Rubin look like an idiot, though.
Yeah,
because there's a point in the movie where the script is just outright making fun of him because
things I've read about Jerry Rubin is like he's kind of was probably a very smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
the brief stuff I've read about him is that he was actually pretty smart.
They make him look like he makes him look like an idiot. He like, especially with that like kind of bad stoner accent that pops up like a lot of the time when he speaks, and then but there's the scene. Well, we'll get to it in a second. Actually, moving on. Then we see that Tom Hayden got arrested during the. This was before the riot, but this was like during the demonstrations, the protests. He let the air out of the tires of these undercover Chicago cops that were following his friend Rennie around. And they have this whole thing that I think was just contrived by Sorkin, I would guess, about Rennie being like, I'm being tailed by these cops, and like, I think his girlfriend lived in Chicago and he was staying with his girlfriend, and he's like, my girlfriend doesn't know about this side of my life, and her parents especially don't know.
I remember that.
So it's, I think the whole thing is contrived just so Sorkin can be like, okay, the only reason Tom Hayden was pushed to do some civil disobedience was because he was looking out for his good friend. He was being a good guy to his friend.
Yeah.
Instead of just like he wanted to fuck with the cops, which is very likely what it was. Or he just wanted them not to follow anybody around.
Sure.
In any case, yeah, he lets out the air, and the cops like talk some shit to him. He gets arrested. So then the next day, like, the whole gang, all the protesters like start marching down the street to the police station where Hayden is. They're chanting "Free Hayden," something like that. And this is where we see the very brief Allen Ginsberg cameo. It's just him saying "Om" into the megaphone. Kind of, I don't know, that part made me laugh. Just like, oh, the 60s were kind of stupid. But I guess one of the sort of significant thing about showing that, I guess, is that then they cut to Abby Hoffman. Like a lot of the way this story is being told too is through like flash forwards and flashbacks. So at certain points, we're seeing Abby Hoffman with this like American flag shirt, talking to a crowd, doing quote unquote stand up. And he said, like, Allen Ginsberg was there, and the police said he was doing like some war chant or something, and like all he was doing was like, this Buddhist like mantra, I guess. Then we see these frat bros who are screaming at this girl who is like up on some guy's shoulders, and she's like holding the American flag. And these three like frat guys are screaming at her, calling her cunt and stuff, and like, put the flag down. They're offended that she's even holding an American flag, and
sure,
she stays strong and doesn't. It's kind of cartoonish, this whole sequence, but anyway, they end up having this very dramatic face-off with the police outside of the police station.
I think Sorkin missed an opportunity doing that. When the police riot broke out and the frat guys were there, I thought Sorkin could have done more for his like Sorkin vision if he had had one of the cops the cops weren't paying attention to who's who, but he didn't have any of the cops like Billy Club, one of the frat guys,
right,
thinking he was a protester, so the frat guys suddenly saw the light of being like, oh no, maybe these people we're making fun of do have a point.
That's a really good point, man. I bet if Sorkin heard someone say that now, he'd be like kicking himself. Like, I should have done that.
I was surprised. I was expecting it.
Oh, really? I wasn't necessarily, but
I don't know why. I mean, but maybe he wanted to make sure to have a way for him to. And maybe Jerry Rubin actually did like save a girl from getting raped. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's any evidence of that happening. And you know what? It's a weird creative like liberty that he took with it. Like, it didn't need to be there to show like that. In a weird way, it almost distracted from the police violence in the scene. But just let's circle back 1 second, because we're not quite to that scene yet. We're like right before it. No, it's fine. It's good. So actually a really good point. But they're having this like really dramatic like literal face off. They're all lined up like looking at each other on the street. The cops are all there with their guns. They're like cocking their shotguns like very dramatically, and Abby Hoffman and basically everybody except Jerry Rubin is pretty much like all the leadership, quote unquote, at least. They're like, we got to just turn around, like we're going to get killed or at least really hurt. And Jerry Rubin has this moment where he's like, fuck it. Like, let's just charge the police. Like, of course they would have just been like annihilated. Although they were just more into beating people back then. They didn't often, I mean, I guess there was the shooting at like, Kent State, but like, anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is that ultimately they do start turning around. They do turn around and there's no issue, but then they go back to the park and the cops are all on the top of this hill. Now, this part, I guess, is a very historically inaccurate to the point where it's like the opposite of what happened.
Really?
Yeah. So what's shown in the movie, okay, is they're all pissed off. They got turned around from their protest at the police station. They're back at the park, but now the cops are there in like probably like 100 or so, maybe more. A lot of cops, and there's this hill, and there's like a big statue up on the hill of like some guy on a horse. None of that matters. But Jerry Rubin, he's like being more and more belligerent. He's yelling shit like, fuck you pigs, fuck your pig kids. And then at one point that Rennie guy is like, maybe don't bring their kids into it, which is just, again, such a Sorkin touch. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, yeah, it's like that conversation didn't happen. They were all like the heat of the moment. And well, okay, and here's
one was even thinking about
here's the reason why it really didn't happen is because it was what I understand to be the real historical event here is that all the protesters were on the hill, not the cops. The protesters were just standing around peacefully on the hill in a park, a public park. The cops charged up the hill and started beating them unprovoked. In the movie, it's the exact opposite. It's almost like it's like a bunch of hippies doing like the fucking freedom scene from Braveheart. Mm-hmm. Like they're like running at these cops. Like it's so ridiculous. And of course they all get beaten to shit because they're tear gassing them and hitting them with like nightsticks, billy clubs. And then that's when the scene where the frat guys like they throw down the girl who had the flag and they like start like tearing off her clothes, and Jerry Rubin like punches one of them out and makes them disperse, and then a gun is cocked next to his head and this cop saying you're under arrest.
That makes no sense. I'm sorry. The more I think about the frat, at that time, I can't believe that frat guys
could have happened for sure.
Were screaming at a girl, a hippie girl with an American flag. Sure. What I don't get, they pull the girl down and start trying to rape her while there's tear gas in the air.
Yeah, it's
while there's tear gas, if nothing else.
Even the most horrible monster of a rapist person probably wouldn't be doing that in that situation.
No, tear gas sucks. Actually, yeah, it sucks. So,
I mean, but not only just tear gas. Like, there's like thousands of witnesses around you.
Sure.
I mean, I guess actually though,
I mean,
there were all of those reports about like Woodstock '99,
yeah,
of like rapes happening in the crowd, which oh god, that's so fucked up. We could do a whole we could do a whole episode about Woodstock '99, but maybe not. Anyway, and then yeah, that clash is like just kind of over with. They cut to the next scene. Oh, there's one little point in the right before that when they're having the standoff with the police and when they're turning around. Abby Hoffman says to Dellinger, "Do you carry money?" And Dellinger turns to him and says, "I do. I'm a grown man." And like that's Aaron Sorkin's idea of humor. And I bring it up because it's very condescending and probably not true at all. Abby Hoffman, yes, was like very much so a leftist and opposed to capitalism, but I'm sure he carried fucking money with him.
Sure.
You know, like, and he asks like a really like sincerely and naively, like, "Do you carry money?" He's like, "Yes, I do. I'm a grown man." And it plays into some other things that happen later. This idea of like being the grown up in the room, right? Which is like Sorkin's whole like animating like principle is like us middle people, us centrists, we're the grown-ups in the room. You Abby Hoffmans of the world, you don't know how to get things done. You don't carry money. You look weird. Anyway,
you don't wear a nice tech vest.
This is where we basically get to the, unless I'm skipping something, I don't think I am, but
I don't think so.
I think we got to kind of hurry through this anyway. Bobby Seale being bound and gagged happens, and this is maybe the most egregious inaccuracy, I feel like, even more so than reversing the roles of that battle on the hill.
Why is this?
Because so the judge like just gets sick of this black man, this radical Black Panther guy, like, because he was actually more not belligerent, but more standing up for himself than Aaron Sorkin shows. Like, he was saying, like, calling the judge like a fascist, bigot, racist, and because he was.
Well, I think everyone in that
they all were
trial
right,
was
but
be more.
But the thing was, I felt like he didn't push hard enough the fact that maybe he did. He still didn't have a lawyer. Like, he was in this trial for, I believe, at least a month, maybe longer. Without a lawyer, which is plainly unconstitutional. Like, I don't know how no one like intervened on that. You know, it's crazy.
I think they tried.
Maybe I'm not sure actually about that. But in any case, he like keeps speaking out of turn. You know, whatever. He's just pissing off the judge. And the judge says to the I don't know. He calls them marshals.
Yeah,
like security
the
people.
U.S. Marshals.
I guess they're U.S. Marshals. He says, "Take this man back into the back room and do what needs to be done with him," something like that. And they show him like being like beaten and then chained.
I heard that was one of the scenes. I mean, not the part that comes after he's bound and gagged, but the scene
the
of him
actual
getting beating up was actually one of the more accurate scenes because there was care taken to make sure that like it shows that they weren't striking his face and other things that the court would be visible.
Yeah. And
which is kind of standard practice for police beatings from what I understand.
Yeah, the old phone book trick or whatever.
Yeah.
So they beat him, they bind him, and they gag him. I mean, it's really insane that ever happened in like, I don't know, the 20th century at least.
Yeah.
But here's where Sorkin drops the ball incredibly. Like, and I knew this going in. Like, this was one of the facts I knew about like a long time ago, was that for 3 days of the trial he was bound and gagged. And in the movie, he's shown to be brought out from that back room. And it looks terrible. Like people are like shocked, including the including the lawyer, the
Richard Schultz.
JGL. He looks so like sad, like he's about to start crying.
Sympathetic Schultz.
And they try to like, the judge just tries to like carry on. He's like, okay, like continue, whatever. And JGL leaps up to his feet and says, "May I approach?" And he approaches the bench. All the lawyers approach, and so this is in a matter of like under a minute. This happens, right? From Bobby Seale being brought out, shown to be bound and gagged, to this prosecutor like jumping to his defense, more or less.
Yeah.
And so he says to the judge, like very intensely, like, "Sir, we have a man bound and gagged in an American courtroom." Like, and then I don't know what else is said. Eventually, he says, I insist that Bobby Seale be severed from this trial and have it declared a mistrial." The judge is like, "The fuck you talking about?" The judge also gets like outraged that anyone would accuse him of being unfair, like
biased
towards a black man. He said, "In all my years, no one's ever accused me of that." And yeah, the defense says some snappy comeback, like, "Well, we're accusing you of that anyway." But yeah, the big thing is like he makes it look like it was this thing that lasted like less than a minute. It went on for 3 days, and I also highly doubt that was the attitude of Richard Schultz, to like leap to his feet and say, "This is an outrage, sir."
I mean, I was talking about it earlier. I don't know exactly what happened, but if Richard Schultz in any way defended Bobby Seale, I think it would have been a tactical thing where maybe he was smart enough to know that it was a political trial, as they say in the movie a few times.
Yeah.
And that is just like, that imagery is not going to help the prosecution. Like, it's just going to make it harder for the prosecution when so I mean, I'm sure the people on the prosecution, while evil, were smart enough to know that it's like, man, we've got a jury here, and if they have to sit and look at not only this man that hasn't had an attorney the whole case,
Right.
It's also bound and gagged, like, that if anything is going to turn, like, I mean, basically the prosecution hand-selected the jury, from what I understand.
Yeah.
If anything is going to turn their hand-selected jury against them, it would be
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a quote from Schultz, from a week ago in that interview. He says, well, first I'll preface it with what he says right before it. He says about the bound and gagged thing. The whole thing was a setup, a way to get Seale bound and gagged so they could demonstrate to the world that the federal courts were racist, Schultz said. They played it to the hilt. There was nothing we could do. Doesn't that sound like the same guy we saw in the movie who jumped to his feet to defend Bobby Seale? I know, but hang on, this is the more relevant part next. When the jury stepped into relevant to what you were just saying. When the jury stepped into the box and saw Seale restrained at the table, they looked shocked, Schultz said. One of them was crying. It was sad to watch. It seems like he's saying it was sad to watch the juror cry, not sad to watch this man bound and gagged.
Sure.
Anyway, I don't know how much there is more to say about the bound and gagged thing other than it's like insane that it ever happened. And that, yes, they do. The judge does immediate, so it goes from bringing out the bound and gagged Bobby Seale, and then within a minute, the judge declares a mistrial. And we basically don't really see Bobby Seale ever again in the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two. No,
you don't.
We don't ever see him.
He's not in the movie again.
So then there's a scene that's before this then that I do want to talk about at some point too. But when they visit him in jail. No, it is after, because he's still in jail after that for the other charges.
Okay.
He's charged for a murder of a police officer in Connecticut. So that's probably why he was still in jail, I guess. No, he was also in jail for the contempt charges. So anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. But because of the... Oh, wait, we're here. We're at it right now. So right after the bound and gagged thing, Kunstler and Tom Hayden visit Bobby Seale in prison to tell him that Fred Hampton, his friend and like co-founder of the Black Panthers, has been murdered. And like, you know, in a very like, it's almost certain that it was like some sort of op, you know, like assassination style, just end this man's life. But there's something I noticed in the second watch that it didn't on the first during this scene, where Bobby Seale says to Hayden, who throughout my notes for some reason I just kept writing Hyde. He says, "You all got the same father." He said, "What? You all got the same father?" And he says, you know, he's talking about like, you know, the Chicago 7, all these 7 white, you know, leftist activists.
Yeah.
And then he says, you know, your dad said like, cut your hair, don't be a hippie faggot, stuff like that. The whole and he's basically just he's saying this is all just a big fuck you to your dad, what you guys are doing. What I'm doing with the Black Panthers is real. You know, we're responding to like being victims of lynching, which is true. That part's true. But the thing that Sorkin is trying to say here is that like, basically, if you're like middle class and white, you got nothing to complain about. And if you're doing any sort of like activism, it's all just you playing out your daddy issues and like giving the finger to your parents or the authorities or whatever. And yeah, I found that really gross, especially that we had to hear Aaron Sorkin's politics through Bobby Seale's mouth at that moment. Anyway, did you even catch that the first time? I didn't really catch it the first time.
Not really.
It goes by kind of just quickly. And because the thing is there's no argument. Like Hayden's just kind of like nodding like, yeah, I guess I am not justified in trying to end the war just because my dad's an asshole. Like that's basically the logic of Aaron Sorkin. It's like, you're just mad at your dad. Stop trying to end the war. Stop getting in people's faces, you know. Let's see. At one point, I just said I wish there was real video footage of the trial. There's just transcripts, but they've been released recently as a book, which I kind of want to read at some point. At one point, they're all back at their headquarters, and Rennie raises this idea of, I wonder if this whole trial is just about John Mitchell, the current AG under Nixon, just trying to like get revenge upon Ramsey, the guy played by Michael Keaton, who was the old AG under Johnson. And this is like a revelation moment for them. So they go to meet the previous Attorney General, Ramsey something. We'll just call him Michael Keaton. So they meet Michael Keaton, and there's all this fucking like niceties and just bullshit dialogue. Again, this is Sorkin like wasting more time that he could have used to like, I don't know, say depict the 3 days that Bobby Seale was bound and gagged, instead of making the chronology in like all condensed into a minute and a half. But anyway, the point, eventually the AG just says, yeah, I'll testify. Like, I'll testify. And what he's going to testify to is that under his investigation as AG, they found that the protesters did nothing wrong. There was no conspiracy between these 3 groups. And in fact, the most important point, the way they say it so plainly, is the police started the riots. So then there's one other dumb little Sorkin moment right before that conversation where they walk into this, it's this huge mansion, this house that this ex-AG lives at. And this black maid, lets them in, asks them if they want anything, blah, blah, blah. And then
moment.
Do you remember this? And she stops and turns dramatically to Tom Hayden and goes, I read in the newspaper that you were the only one you're the only one to stand for the judge. Oh, we forgot to mention that part. So after the bound and gagged thing, Rennie passes a note to Hayden that says, don't stand for the judge. And they nod to each other yeah, we're not going to stand. This is going to be our little gesture of fuck you. But then the judge comes out and Hayden just stands. And later, he says it was just a reflex. I think he says it twice. Because, yeah, it's his reflex to respect the institutions and authority, which Sorkin thinks is a good thing. It seems.
Yeah. Obviously.
But yeah, the fact that this is Sorkin using another black person. He uses everyone to as a mouthpiece, but he's using this black maid character that he made up out of thin air to show the difference between Hayden and Abby Hoffman, basically, to drive the point home even further. It just was it was just this very unrealistic moment that seemed even more ridiculous the second time I watched it. So then they want to call Michael Keaton to the stand, and this is the one moment I think in the whole movie where Richard Schultz, JGL, actually comes off as wanting to get these fuckers and instead of being this conflicted soft guy, because he starts yelling about how they shouldn't allow this witness, that it's illegal, but it's really not illegal, and there's some technical back and forth, and ultimately the judge says, okay, we'll listen to his testimony, but the jury's not going to hear it. I will determine if it's relevant. The testimony is very plain and straightforward. He's just I was the attorney general a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was at the time.
I think it was even less.
Yeah, maybe. And says, what I already said, that the police started the riot. The whole everybody in the crowd starts clapping when he says that, which I think, well, that probably did happen actually.
It may have happened.
But yeah, the whole point is they have a very credible witness who says his government
intelligence, the government intelligence,
the
investigation,
that the office of the attorney general investigated this and found the riots were caused by the Chicago Police Department and that there was no conspiracy, which were the two main charges being brought against these guys. And of course, the judge just says, none of this is relevant. And the jury's not even going to hear the fact that we talked to this witness, let alone hear what he had to say.
I'm sure the judge, much like the prosecution, were Nixon people, and I don't know where I'm going with that. But
the judge was obviously just he hated everything about the defendants.
Yeah.
Every single thing about them. Which brings us to the other thing that Sorkin didn't show that happened in the historical record is he literally used his power as a judge to force a haircut, which I think happened in the courtroom possibly.
I thought it was after they were...
No. It was during the trial still.
Was it?
Yeah. And the sheriff of Cook County, where Chicago is, literally held up Abby Hoffman's cut off hair as this weird trophy, for a press conference or something.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's just one small example of like the insane shit this judge actually did that is not alluded to or portrayed at all in the movie. But we gotta power through.
I like to think that they made I don't think they really there should have been more time should have been spent in the movie showing just how many antics actually happened in the court case, as far as like just the defendants,
yeah,
like, especially Abby Hoffman and Jerry just not giving a shit.
I think that movie I had mentioned at the beginning, the Steal This Movie, I think they're like 5 or 10 minutes they dedicate to the court, to the whole trial, probably showed more of the antics than this whole movie.
Yeah.
I think I might rewatch that. I think it's going to be like painfully bad though, but I'm kind of curious now to watch it again.
I mean, I know we're not there yet, but I want to talk about one scene with David Dillinger that kind of got on my nerves.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, you've got better notes than me, and I'm not exactly sure where it happened, but
and remember, it's Dellinger. They have that whole scene in the beginning with the mispronunciations.
Dellinger. The scene where Dellinger hits the pro officer, the marshal or whatever.
Yeah,
did not happen. I mean, Dellinger, he was a radical pacifist. He was like one of the biggest like nonviolent people on the planet. Even like in interviews, he talked about the one time he hit somebody was like in university, and he knocked him out, and it like shook him so bad that he sat there and like basically cried with the person in his like arms that he knocked out, and then like carried him home, and like it was like a traumatic experience.
Yeah,
but I don't know why. Like, I mean, from what I've read about Dellinger, he's like really, really against like any type of violence, and it's just like completely out of his character.
Yeah,
But a funny thing that did happen, and like they focus on Dellinger's son a lot, like the little boy, I think his name was Daniel. I think it's not in the movie. But I know in the court case from some of my readings that Dellinger had a 24-year-old daughter at the time who actually did start a fight during the trial and ended up like kicking one of the marshals and like punching him and getting thrown out of the like audience.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, the thing with the son was just like, it was a way of, it was like, that's the whole,
I know.
I think the whole reason Sorkin put the punching thing in there was to get that reaction shot of the wife and son, where they're like disappointed in the father because he, in the very beginning of the movie, during that god-awful montage with the worst music on earth, it shows Dellinger like talking to his son, and the son's like, "What if the police hurt you, Daddy?" And he's like, "Well, they're not going to hurt us, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "I'm nonviolent." He's just like telegraphing everything, because Sorkin is just actually not a good writer when it comes down to it. Like, he's like, "I'm the nonviolent one. My name's Dellinger." Like, he might as well just say that. But yeah, the thing with the son just seemed, again, this is one more example of like a little detail that didn't need to be there at all, that took away from way more important shit that he could have talked about. And yeah, so he's like putting in stuff that didn't happen and leaving out stuff that did. That, I mean, I understand the basic idea when you dramatize history, you have to do that to some extent, of course, but he does it in egregious ways that are unnecessary. And you could do it better. You could make this film much better, is all I'm saying.
In ways, I think that, well, Dellinger might have ended up being the most activist of all of them. He's not alive now. He died in 2004. But the last time he was arrested was 1998 for protesting at a nuclear site for like nuclear weapons.
Well, yeah, he was probably the last of those 7 or 8 that.
Well, Bobby Seale's still alive.
I'm saying, yeah. I don't know what kind of activism Bobby Seale's doing these days, but no, because, well, we'll get to that at the end, what they all ended up doing after. But actually, you were totally chronologically in the right place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he punches the guy because he's so mad about the judge striking the entire Michael Keaton thing.
Right.
So, yeah, there's the punch, And you telling the story about him punching the guy in college, maybe Sorkin knew about that story and was just trying to push it into the movie because he thought it was compelling to see like this man struggling with pacifism or whatever. Because right after he punches the guy, they show him getting like cuffed and his like face smushed down on the table, and you hear him saying, "I hit him. I can't believe I hit him." And then he immediately like softly says like, "I'm sorry," to the guy he punched, and that's like kind of the end of it. But then we get to the scene that I'm just gonna play right now. Where is it? Okay. This is where there's kind of, this to me like shows, this is kind of the peak of the Hayden versus Abby Hoffman dynamic, and Sorkin just really letting it all hang out here. It's a couple minutes long, but whatever, we can talk over some of it if we want.
Sure.
Oh shit. No, it's not starting. There we go.
There's only one thing. There's one thing to do. Solidarity with Dave. Tomorrow we go into court and we get ourselves arrested.
This is Jerry Rubin.
We're already arrested.
Hayden.
Is Bill talking to you about taking the stand? As some of the press guys are saying, Bill's been talking to you about taking the stand.
Yeah, he's been talking to me about
He
it.
thinks you might get the crowd worked up with the position paper.
Maybe he thinks I won't try to get the crowd worked up at all. No, maybe he thinks they're jurors who've relied on the safety of the police and are put off when someone calls them pigs. Or maybe he just wants a witness who dresses like a grown man.
The cops in this city in the summer of 1968 were pigs.
Hang on a second. Maybe he just wants somebody who's dressed like a grown man. Do you think Tom Hayden said that to about Abby Hoffman back then?
Maybe.
I guess maybe. To me, this seemed like Sorkin's opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's not a big deal, but it connects back to the thing about, do you carry money? Yes, I do. I'm a grown man. I'm the grown up in the room. Anyway, going on.
I wonder how many of them had kids in Vietnam.
He's gonna take the stand, not you? And we're okay with that? Abby.
What did you mean the last thing I wanted is to end the war?
This is Abby.
Centuries ago, when the trial started, you said, why did I come to Chicago? And I said, to end the war. And then you turned to everyone and you said, the last thing he wants is to end the war. What did you mean by that?
I meant that you were making the most of your close-up.
Yeah?
No more war, no more Abby Hoffman.
What's your problem with me, Hayden?
I really wish people would stop asking me that question.
Dave wouldn't want us to
Answer it. One time.
All right. My problem
Here's
is that for the
Sorkin.
next 50 years, when people think of progressive politics, they're going to think of you. They're going to think of you and your idiot followers passing out daisies to soldiers and trying to levitate the Pentagon. So they're not going to think of equality or justice. They're not going to think of education or poverty or progress. They're going to think of a bunch of stone-lost, disrespectful, foul-mouthed, lawless losers. And so we'll lose elections.
All because of me.
Yeah.
And winning elections, that's the first thing on your wish list. Equality, justice, education, poverty, and progress. That's second.
If you don't win elections, it doesn't matter what's second.
Sorkin.
It is astonishing to me that someone still has to explain that to you.
Okay. Okay, so Jerry was talking about
We
standing
don't
with...
have any money.
I'm sorry, what?
We don't have any money. So I stage stunts and cameras come and microphones come. And it's astonishing that someone still has to explain that to you.
You're trading a cow for magic beans.
That ended up working.
What?
The magic beans. There was a giant up there.
Oh.
I can't remember what happened after that. The little boy may have gotten eaten.
Yeah, the giant turned out to be nice.
Are you sure?
No.
It's almost hard to believe the seven of us weren't able to end a war.
Let me ask you something.
You guys should just shake hands.
Do you think Chicago would have gone differently if Kennedy got the nomination?
Do I? Yeah. Yes, Abby, I do. I think the Irish guys would have sat down with Daley, and yes.
I think so, too.
Yeah?
That's why I was wondering. Weren't you just a little bit happy when the bullet ripped through his head? No Chicago, no Tom Hayden.
I was one.
Pallbearers, you fucking asshole! That's right! We're not going to jail because of what we did. We're going to jail because of who we are. Think about that the next time you shrug off cultural revolution. We define winning differently, you and I.
All right. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, it's just like the most like I feel like the most obvious, like just Sorkin can't contain himself, like talking from the vantage point of like 2019 or whenever he was writing this. Like, if we don't win elections, none of that other shit matters, you know? And the thing that he writes makes Abbie Hoffman say about the reason he does like these outrageous like kind of stunts and events and shit is because that like they don't have money, and that's the cheap way to like get cameras there. That's kind of true, but like it's not the only reason he did those stunts. And I found this one quote by Abbie Hoffman. It's really short, and I just want to read it.
Okay.
That talks about his kind of his reasoning behind why he did those kind of outrageous stunts or whatever. So he says, a modern revolutionary group headed for the television station, not for the factory. So he's saying like in like the age of television, like revolution and activism are going to have to be done in a different way. He goes on to say, if we were the TV generation, wasn't there a way of speaking that evoked visual images rather than spewing forth dead words in rhythmic religious procession that bounced off dulled eardrums and dissipated into empty space? So he's embracing like the medium of like TV. Like he sees that there's some power in it. And anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting quote too, but there's not much more to the movie after this. I think we can run through it pretty quickly. Like, they want Hayden to be like the witness on the witness stand, but there's this audio recording of him at what they say kicked off the riots, which was him yelling into the microphone if there's something to the effect of if blood is going to flow, it should flow all over the streets.
All over the streets of Chicago.
Yeah. And so they see this as a way of inciting the riot, right? And this is what the prosecution is using to say that this was an incitement of violence. Then there's this really ridiculous moment where Abbie Hoffman gives like a grammar lesson. I don't know if you remember.
I felt that part was believable.
It's basically, and like the music that's playing behind it makes it seem like it's this revelation. Like, oh, he meant to say our blood. If our blood is going to flow, not the blood of the police. Oh, and then he like, I forget the exact words used, but he uses like a very technical like description of the grammar that like I kind of doubt anyone would just rattle off in like a normal conversation. But anyway, this all leads to, okay, Abbie Hoffman's going to take the stand. This is basically the end of the movie. He takes a stand, and here we get like some of the most egregious Sorkinism as well. I saw a lot of people. I think Nathan Robinson was one of them, specifically criticizing this scene because it just completely rewrites like who Abbie Hoffman was. He says something to the extent of, "I love our democratic institutions. I just think that the people in them are bad right now."
Yeah, I remember saying that. Which
is like, okay, I have a bunch of just random Abbie Hoffman quotes here. Let's just compare that to even one of them. Where is it? I believe in compulsory cannibalism. If people were forced to eat what they killed, there would be no more wars. When decorum is repression, the only dignity-free men have is to speak out. And on and on. Like he was not this. It's funny, Sorkin just can't help but paint everyone as himself to some degree. Like even someone like Hoffman, who he does sort of ridicule in ways in the movie.
Sorkin believes that everyone deep down inside believes the institutions are truly for the good.
Yeah, basically, that's right. Yeah. And
I think Hoffman truly believed that the institutions need to be overturned.
Yeah, he said it all the time.
Hoffman did quote that Lincoln quote a lot about it being the people's right to overthrow government when it becomes, I mean... That's record. I mean, he's on record of quoting that more than once.
That might have actually been part of the court transcripts, that part, but I think I would be so shocked if some of the other parts were really things he said. There's no way. And even if he did, he might have been saying it like sarcastically.
Yeah.
I know we're going pretty long, and I know you got to go soon, right?
I do.
Okay. There's a bunch of other shit I want to say, but whatever. Let's just talk about what I wrote in my notes in all caps says most hilarious ending ever, and I started thinking of the word soaring, like soaring rhetoric, and like the vibes of like just soaring speeches and shit, and then I realized Aaron SOARkin, haha, very punny. Anyway, the last scene of the film is the judge saying that he'll allow Hayden to like speak his piece because he was the most respectful out of all of them, and that if you speak respectfully and nicely and blah 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 blah, I might consider that when sentencing you. And so Hayden just starts reading the names of the fallen soldiers. And this, where this departs from reality is that it didn't happen during the end of the trial. It happened somewhere else throughout the trial.
Also, Hayden didn't read the names. Dellinger did.
No, it was Dellinger. And, yeah, see, that's the thing is, yeah, Sorkin's, like, avatar was Hayden. So he had to have him be the guy doing the big soaring gesture at the end, right?
Yeah. From my readings online, I think Dellinger's my favorite person in the. Well,
maybe I don't know much about him honestly, other than like he opposed the World War II as well. I guess he was old enough to. But so he starts reading these names, and the judge starts banging his gavel. Like this is the most cartoonish shit, and the music just starts swelling and like this is where I feel like the movie comes full circle music-wise, because the music is just so silly, over-the-top dramatic. While he's reading these names, everyone in the crowd is clapping and standing up, and it's like endlessly clapping. And this goes on like longer than you might remember from watching it. When I watched it the second time, I was like, this is not ending. It goes on for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
First of all, when the real reading of the names happened, they read both dead Vietnamese people's names and dead U.S. soldiers' names, and it was shut down after like 20 seconds probably. Like they just shut him up. But in the movie, it's Hayden like very proudly, and everyone like Jerry Rubin is doing the solidarity fist in the air. And it's just everything about it is so fucking silly. And then maybe like the fucking climax of it is when the prosecuting lawyer, JGL,
Richard,
he stands up very stoically, and the other prosecuting attorney,
his partner or whatever,
says, "What the hell are you doing?" And he says, I quote,
"Respecting the fallen."
Yeah. Respect. It's called Respect for the Fallen, which I wrote ha 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 after for some reason. And then we get one of these like text things that just shows us like what went on what ended up happening to these major figures after. And I feel like this is also telling, and we'll end it right after this, but it goes in the order of like Abby Hoffman. No, wait, no. Anyway, sorry. It just says that like they were sentenced for 5 years, but then the decision was reversed. There was a new trial ordered, but then the attorney general declined to retry it. Kunstler had 24 counts of contempt. There was a survey done of Chicago trial lawyers who 78% of them said that Judge Hoffman had a rating of, quote, unqualified. Bobby Seale was falsely accused of murdering a cop in Connecticut, and that's the only thing they say about him. That's the only thing he went on to do afterwards. Jerry Rubin became a stockbroker. He was killed while jaywalking.
That's what you get for being a stockbroker.
The thing that stood out to me about that part was the mention of jaywalking. Like,
he was.
But why is that irrelevant? You could just say he got hit by a car.
He got killed for opposing the system by jaywalking.
That's what I'm saying is Sorkin deliberately put that in there. It seems so petty to be like, oh, by the way, he was jaywalking, so maybe he kind of deserved it. Anyway, it just that stuck out to me. Yeah, I mean it's lame that he became a stockbroker, whatever. But and then it says Abby Hoffman wrote "Steal This Book" and committed suicide, and then he saves the very best for last himself, which is played by, in the role as Tom Hayden. Tom Hayden was elected to California state legislator and was reelected 6 more times, and then we hit credits. So I think it's no mistake that was the order, and those are the things that he had to say about what they went on to do with their lives.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if you want to be an Abby Hoffman, you write a dumb book. And he even wrote something like, nobody knows how many copies are in circulation because people were stealing it. It's almost kind of a dig at him. Like, you idiot. You could have made money. Anyway. So you could be like Abby Hoffman and just commit suicide and be a loser, or you can be a great man and go into local state politics. And I'm sure
Make real changes.
I'm sure Tom Hayden made a lot of real important changes there. But yeah, that's the movie. I don't know. Final thoughts, I guess.
It's entertaining.
My fucking throat is
not a lot of historical inaccuracies. I mean, if you're bored, want to watch something, it's worth watching, but it's probably also worth like actually reading a bit about the actual trial and people.
Yeah, totally.
It's not like Charlie Wilson's War. It's not an unwatchable Aaron Sorkin movie. There's good parts. I think.
Right. I
think the actors are much stronger than the script.
I also think the reason it's watchable is purely because of the subject matter.
Yeah, I think that's a big part
because
of it
the
too.
subject matter is interesting. It's historically interesting stuff. Like, it's just Sorkin's version of it is very well. I mean, we just spent 2 hours telling you what's wrong with it. But yeah, I would recommend people watch it as well, I guess. And maybe compare it to the real history. Maybe check out those. I've heard that the transcripts are really interesting. They've just been published, and yeah, I guess that's it.
That's all.
All right. Well,
recommendations. Want to do those today, or do you want to just say no recommendations until we find out the future of America?
Can you stay for like 5 more minutes? Okay, then just hang on a second.
Civil unrest.